Commission, Ministry of Commerce, Government of Pakistan, Mr. Aftab Haider, CEO of Pakistan Single Window, Ms. Nosheen Barkat, CEO of USCR and co-convener of the FPCCI Central CSR Standing Committee on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And we have joined by Ms. Mahnur Arshad. She has joined us online from US, and it's probably 4 a.m. there. So I'm sorry, Mahnur, and thank you so much for all of you for being here today to discuss this issue with us. So in today's discussion, we will explore the role of market access arrangements such as the GSP plus everything but arms, EBA plus free trade agreements in enhancing trade opportunities for South Asian countries, including Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. So these arrangements have provided valuable opportunities to boost export flows. However, while export have increased, broader objective remain a work in progress. Key goals including expanding the export basket, increasing women's share in trade, and enabling smaller firms from a vulnerable region to integrate into global value chain. Women exporters from small and medium enterprises faces numerous gender-specific barriers and hinder their participation in trade. And we must identify strategies to enhance outcomes for these women by leveraging market access and the product diversification opportunities. So in this session, discussion, we will address several key questions to uncover insights and actionable recommendations for improving women participation in trade. Before I begin, I would like to request Ms. Birgit Lam, Country Head FNF, for her opening remarks.
Thank you so much for SDPI to invite us and host this panel here at the esteemed sustainability conference, which is already like a standard given every year in the agenda of everybody in civil society and working on good governance, because this is really the area and the opportunity where you meet a lot of stakeholders, opinion leaders, and experts on these topics. Friedrich Naumann Foundation has worked together with SDPI quite a while already on the issue of women entrepreneurship and specifically in sustainable business fields, while at the same time we have with other partner organizations run programs on the micro level by empowering women-led entrepreneurs, startups to accelerate and grow their businesses. And right now this panel is actually a unique opportunity where we can actually combine and merge these two fields of work and bringing in the expertise from some of the entrepreneurs like Ms. Nosheen, who is a graduate of this entrepreneurship training program that we've run with our partners for 4 years. And she's now herself an opinion leader and a functionary in the chambers of commerce, and taking her experience and sharing it with other aspiring entrepreneurs. And we would like to bring that practical experience also to the table where academics and decision makers in public administration and also in politics actually formulate the framework of what it means for any startup and business to grow, and specifically the hurdles that women and marginalized or vulnerable segments in society face. Everybody who starts a new business anywhere in the world faces unique challenges. Mainly the first is to get capital investment. Where do you find your market? Where do you get the customers? And women have an extra mile to go on top of that. So we also need to make sure how do we actually leverage and level that playing field, that women have the same possibilities as men to start their business and also grow their business. And in the end, our ultimate aim is, of course, we want good business ideas, good products to find a good market, customers, and we want people, investors as well as customers, in the end, to only look at the product and the business idea and the investment opportunities, be it whoever is leading or managing it. whether it's a woman, a man, an old person, a young person, or whatever ethnicity or whatever national background you have. You should have equal opportunities, and only your idea and your commitment to your product and your business should count. So having said that, I'm also grateful for SDPI to have embarked on this journey with us and delivered these research-based ideas and recommendations on what is actually the state of things for women-led businesses in trade, and also given us the opportunity to merge it here with the business voices and bring different stakeholders together. So I'm very grateful for Ms. Gulmina Bilal, who heads now a very important public training institution, actually, to promote vocational training and entrepreneurship here, and making Pakistani economy fit for the future and hopefully also for the international markets. I'm very grateful to Dr. Najma Afzal also for sharing her experience and bringing the political view to the table. And I'm also very grateful for Mr. Aftab Haider for presenting the single window opportunity, because we do not only need good entrepreneurs, we need political frameworks, and we need easier bureaucratic or administrative frameworks as well. And I'm also happy and would like to welcome so many gentlemen here around the table, because women in trade is not only a female issue. I think it's a societal issue, and gentlemen should take as much interest in facilitating trade and business, whoever has a good business idea, and should be very much promoting also women in trade. So thank you to all of you for being here, and I'm looking forward to a very lively and very productive discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lam, for your insightful remarks. Now I would like to invite Mahnoor for a scene setting presentation so we can start the discussion.
Thank you very much, Sadia. I'm having some technical difficulties in sharing the presentation, so if perhaps I can request the IT person to share it on screen, and I could say next whenever the next slide needs to be shown. Right, thank you very much. So as Sadia mentioned, my presentation is mainly going to be setting the scene here, sort of agenda setting presentation. And I'll try to keep it quite brief, as I'm also very interested in learning from all the able and august panelists that are present here at the session today. So essentially, my presentation will be focusing on our findings from our study titled Empowering Women in Trade, a South Asian Perspective. Again, this was a joint collaboration between SDPI and Friedrich Naumann Foundation, Pakistan. It took us about, I'd say the last year was mainly about sort of gathering all the data that was needed for it and compiling it into our knowledge product that we have present with us now on the SDPI website, but in hard copy as well. Next. So first, I'd just like to let all of you know what the contents of this presentation is going to be. I'll start off with the objectives of the study, followed by the methodology, the literature review. Then, of course, comes the limitations faced by women-focused firms to integrate globally, the role of public and private sectors in empowering women in trade, and lastly, of course, the recommendations, whether for the public sector or the private sector. Next. So the objectives of the study mainly focused around these four boxes that you can see how women can benefit more from pre-existing trade agreements and what are the best case scenarios to follow in the South Asian region. Secondly, how have women-focused firms integrated regionally and globally because of market access arrangements on ground? What are the various gaps in the subsectors across agriculture, industry, services, where women-focused firms could not achieve the anticipated gains, right? And of course, lastly, I'm going to elaborate on the roles of the public and private sectors, and the objectives in this case would be the policy recommendations for whether it's the public sector, the private sector, or the regulatory spaces to address the gaps that are going to be identified. Next. So the study focused on achieving sort of highlighting SDG 5 and 8, which are achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. And secondly, SDG 8 being promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. So next. The methodology, in the methodology, we try to ensure that there was first a detailed literature review of the academic publications by development partners, academic and think tank institutions in the SAARC region. Secondly, we focused on achieving 25 key informant interviews with the government and non-government officials. There were focus group discussions, roundtable sessions, which included government participation and former parliamentarians also. We also conducted a firm-level survey of about 250 women-owned and women-managed businesses across Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, which are the 3 focus countries of this particular study. We try to ensure that no stakeholder should be left behind, and for that, we used the 3D stakeholder cube method, which essentially covers all types of stakeholders. Firstly, being the high interest, high power ones, which are the influential active backers, the high interest, high power influential active blockers, so on and so forth. We try to ensure that all stakeholders are identified and approached, and data is gathered from them in this regard. Next. Now comes the literature review. So next, please. Yeah, so while South Asia does see a rise in women holding public office, the government spending, on the other hand, when it comes to women's education or health, it continues to remain stagnant and low. And this table is a sort of, a picture of that very point. As we can see that over the years, the proportion of seats held by women in national parliaments have increased. However, the data for other aspects still are, there are gaps in them. And you can see that the columns here are blank. This, again, it brings up the point that investments in girls' education truly does equip them with valuable skills. It contributes to a more skilled workforce, which leads to increased productivity and innovation. And secondly, improved health outcomes will also ensure that women can fully benefit from economic opportunities, and they can be linked to economic gains. Next, please. Yes. So through our literature review, it was also highlighted that countries with high levels of gender equality do see a rise in female entrepreneurship. This not only leads to women's economic empowerment, but it also ensures business landscape diversification. It promotes innovation, and of course, it also ensures trade competitiveness boost in the global market. Next, please. So trade linkages, which are facilitated by bilateral and multilateral agreements, they're important for stability and growth in global economies. And GSP Plus, for example, has empowered women by enhancing the accessibility to European markets, particularly in sectors like apparel, which are sort of women-dominated sector, you can say. Then, of course, there are regional trade agreements like the South Asia Free Trade Agreement, which is South Asian region's sort of commitment to improving economic growth and stability, right? And of course, initiatives by SAARC cannot be ignored either. the SAARC Bazaar and the South Asia Economic Summit, for example, they enable women-led enterprises to showcase their ideas, products, and services across borders. Other free trade agreements, whether they're bilateral or regional, they also offer potential for integrating women-owned and women-led businesses into the global and regional economies, right? Next, please. However, despite the potential of all of these initiatives that I've mentioned, initiatives like SAFTA and all, they, despite their sort of commitment for trade and economic growth in South Asia, the reality seems to be quite different. When we talk about SAARC-wide trade agreements, they have fallen short of expectations. SAFTA, for example, has faced criticism for its limited impact on promoting trade, particularly for women-led businesses, and rightfully so, Secondly, gender-specific barriers, they do further impede women's engagement in regional and international trade under SAFTA. And these barriers can be of different natures, which include unequal access to finance, limited business networks, lack of training and support services, which are necessary for women entrepreneurs. And of course, trade agreements, it really needs to be kept in mind if they're not designed with a gender lens, the existing inequalities will be exacerbated and the gap will widen. Next, please. So failing to address these structural barriers and not promoting gender inclusive trade agreements could definitely lead to missed economic opportunities for all three countries that have been included in this study, that are Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Next, please. Yes, so the next section is going to talk about our findings based on our consultations, the surveys, and the key informant interviews that we carried out. Next, please. So firstly, we'll be talking about limitations faced by women-focused firms to integrate globally. And I've put these pictures in on purpose as the first picture, for example, can you please go back to the previous slide for now? Yeah, so whether it's the corporate ladder or it's the race when it comes to achieving your career goals, whether it's in entrepreneurship, it's in the corporate landscape, so on and so forth, the barriers faced by women are always more as compared to men. Next, please. Right, so here, basically, when we're talking about the limitations faced by women-focused firms to integrate globally, the best sort of interpretation of that was, in my opinion, through Women, Business, and the Law 2024 2.0 indicator scores, right? So while all of these scores for Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka do paint a sort of abysmal picture when it comes to the framework score related to gender. However, I've highlighted entrepreneurship and assets in red, given their relevance to the topic under discussion as of now. So when it comes to legal framework score or the supportive framework score or the expert opinion score, for all three countries, you see that the scores are quite low. Apart from the supportive framework scores for entrepreneurship in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, none of these have passed the 50% mark, which is quite sad, because having a legal framework score of 25, whether it's entrepreneurship or assets, clearly shows that the current sort of entrepreneurship ecosystem is not very conducive when it comes to the gender aspect, right? Next, please. So secondly, I'll talk about the socio-cultural challenges as well. It's not just a developing countries or a South Asian issue. COVID was an excellent example of this. When lockdown was imposed, it was mainly the women who bore the brunt when it came to whether it was domestic violence, household duties, so on and so forth. And consequently, their careers, their businesses suffered greatly. A lot of them had to shut down their businesses and so on and so forth. including apart from that, when it comes to labor force participation rate, even as of now, the percentage of female population aged 15 plus, according to ILO estimates, is quite low as compared to the male population, right? And the graphs here sort of show that while men have scores that reach around 80% in all three countries, the same cannot be said about women. They're pretty much below the 38% mark, even as of now. Next, please. Secondly, another limitation that I'll be talking about is access to digital technology. So, according to After Access nationally representative surveys that were carried out in 2019, we can see that the mobile phone ownership for all three countries, and they've been circled, the percentages, are quite low when it comes to Pakistan, but comparatively better when it comes to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. But next, please. When it comes to internet use and internet penetration, however, it's quite disappointing to see that while Sri Lanka is at 30%, Pakistan and Bangladesh are at 12% and 7% respectively. And when the reasons for not using the internet were sort of delved into, next slide, please. It was very shocking to see that 69% of females in Bangladesh, 76% of females in Pakistan, and 37% of females in Sri Lanka said, I do not know what the internet is. Even in this day and age, there are females and a significant part of the population that still is not aware about this technology. And if we have these state of affairs, how can we expect women or women who are wanting to come into the entrepreneurship ecosystem and be part of the trade milieu to make use of important e-commerce platforms such as Amazon, Alibaba, so on and so forth? Next, please. And these are not just the main limitations. There are, of course, other limitations also. You have the problem of informal enterprises and market integration barriers, right? Majority of the women that do sort of make it to the trade milieu are there because of a term known as suitcase traders. They're not part of the formal sector, and they, for example, will fill up their suitcases with their products, make their way to one of the bazaars or the joint sort of huts that are designed and set up for them. They will sell their products out of their suitcases and back to their cities or their countries. So because they're not part of the formal entrepreneurship ecosystem, and they do not really understand the jargon when it comes to proper trade requirements, etc., they face a lot of limitations because of that. Secondly, of course, there's limited access to finance, and that can be at a cultural level, but also at a regulatory level also. And when it comes to cultural level, of course, I talk about inheritance sort of practices that go on. Women, even if the assets are to their name, it's usually the male members of the families that are handling those assets or making use of them or investing them. And the women do not even have basic knowledge when it comes to asset management. And I'll give an example of this from recently. I know someone whose father passed away, and they had to sell one of the land that was to her name. When she went to the office, she was not allowed to transfer the land to whoever she was selling it to without the presence of a male member of the family. And the reason being that majority of the women, they fall trap to certain deceptive schemes, so on and so forth. And that's why men are encouraged. And this is also encouraged by law. So this is currently when it comes to limited access to finance. And these are some of the reasons that affect that. I think the same would apply, and policy and regulatory barriers sort of club with this next point that I'm going to say, is that a lot of the financing schemes that do come up, women are unaware about them and unable to make use of them. And consequently, the gap is filled by men who might have registered businesses under their wives or sisters or mothers' names, right? Thirdly, their weak capacity building opportunities also that sort of impact how women are successfully able to make use of existing data, knowledge, and platforms in order to become part of the trade milieu and the trade ecosystem. And of course, lack of business networks and support sort of get clubbed into that also. Next, please. So the next section is going to talk about the role of the public and private sectors when it comes to empowering women in trade. Next, please. So firstly, I'll talk about what initiatives have been taken by the public sector. It's not all doom and gloom. The public sector has taken initiative when it comes to inclusivity in the entrepreneurship ecosystem and the trade space. When it comes to Bangladesh, the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, Ministry of Information, and the Ministry of ICT are providing trainings to women on digital trade for empowering and training their female entrepreneurs. Secondly, their planning division has devised the 8th five-year plan from 2020 to 2025, with great emphasis on increasing economic participation and in creating an enabling environment for the advancement. Secondly, if I talk about Pakistan, we have the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, which has great women representation in all general delegations that are sent abroad by giving subsidy. Secondly, SMEDA, which is the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Authority, launched the Women Business Development Center in Mingora, Swat, to accelerate the successful development and progress of women entrepreneurs. And of course, the 5 E's framework by the Ministry of Planning also seeks to create an enabling environment for women in trade and economic activities. Thirdly, of course, Sri Lanka, their Export Development Board's Women Entrepreneurs Development Program has been a promising one and has successfully empowered women MSMEs, around 800 of them for trade purposes. Secondly, the National Policy on Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment, which was launched by the Ministry of Women, Child Affairs and Social Empowerment on Women's Day in 2023, is also a great example of the willingness of this government to ensure women's economic empowerment. Next, please. However, of course, despite notable efforts by these governments, there are still several gaps due to which women are not able to fully integrate into the trade space. And a major reason for this is lack of data and evidence around women-led businesses. When I talk about very sort of prime sources of statistics, the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, for example, states that around 24.6% of all SMEs in the nation are female-owned. When it comes to Pakistan, the Competition Commission of Pakistan reveals that only 1% entrepreneurs are present in Pakistan compared to 21% male entrepreneurs. And then the Sri Lankan Export Development Board reflects that only 25% of entrepreneurs are women in the SME sector. However, these numbers seem intuitively quite low, and it really does bring in that previous point about informal sector as well. And it really does get one to wonder, is that the reason why these statistics do not paint a true picture of what the entrepreneurship ecosystem might really be? And governments, secondly, have also failed to facilitate women successfully to acquire requisite financial resources to carry out trading activities. And when it comes to the free trade agreements, the current ones that the bilateral ones that exist between Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, they provide preferences to certain sectors, but it still leaves space for trade diversification so that women's specific sectors may also be included, Next, please. Next, I'll talk about the private sector and some important and notable efforts that have been made by them. When I talk about the the retail and manufacturing workforce, we have about 60 to 70% of that sort of sector, which comprises of women. And here I'd like to say that in Bangladesh, RMG is the biggest export earning sector. Under the Federation of Bangladesh Chambers of Commerce and Industry, there are around 14 women chambers and 4 business associations emerging to be, pivotal platforms for women entrepreneurs to access trade markets globally. Secondly, when I talk about Pakistan, the Federation of Pakistan's Chamber of Commerce and Industry reports that there are about 27 women chambers of commerce and industry currently registered. Secondly, FPCCI also announced a 50% membership fee waiver for women standing committees to increase women's presence in the trade milieu. Thirdly, when it comes to Sri Lanka, the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and Industry has efficiently worked on providing women with networking opportunities, knowledge, and supports collaborations extensively between women-focused businesses in order for them to expand their activities. Next, please. Here, of course, there are gaps and opportunities that cannot be ignored when it comes to the websites of these women chambers, or even if the Federation Chambers of Commerce. There is a lack of up-to-date information on the websites, which sort of creates a gap when it comes to potential investors or collaborators who are wanting to understand what the current scenario is, or current picture of the current efforts that are being made, or initiatives that have been completed, or initiatives that need to be taken up, I'd say. So secondly, of course, there's a lack of public-private partnerships. There's no denying the fact that there is a distrust and a gap that exists between public and private sectors, which discourages public-private partnerships to flourish and take things forward. But I'd like to say over here that public-private partnerships are the most efficient method when it comes to addressing any sort of gap, whether it's in related to gender or any other aspect. Lastly, of course, women chambers have been sidelined, and matters pertaining to women businesses are not always prioritized. So this is something that is of grave concern, and it must be kept in mind taking things forward. Next, please. Lastly, of course, I'll be talking about the recommendations. First and foremost, of course, inclusive policy making to promote women in trade. Nothing can be done, or things cannot be taken forward if the government is not willing to make those necessary changes in the policy frameworks. Secondly, of course, making available evidence and data regarding women in trade. And I, for one, am a strong advocate of that, because when it came to compiling this particular report, data was a major problem, on whether it was through websites or visiting these offices. Data was not available, and generally data around gender is very challenging to access. Next, of course, there's a great need for awareness initiatives to overcome socio-cultural barriers. And of course, Ms. Lam said this earlier, and I definitely would like to repeat that here. It's not just the women who need hand-holding or help or awareness. It's the male members of the society as well, because if they're not on board and if their support is not there, the women will not be able to achieve their anticipated economic gains, or take things forward. Of course, fourthly, there's orientation and capacity building of existing women enterprises. Also, a lot of women, although they have set up very promising businesses, however, they do not have the necessary capacity to take things forward and become part of the trade milieu. I'm going to rush through the remaining recommendations because I've been prompted on time. So next, I'll be talking about capacity building of individuals from relevant public and private sector entities. So it's not just the women entrepreneurs who need that necessary training, but it's also the officials present in the relevant organizations. Of course, structured public-private dialogues are quite important because if we're not talking about it, how are we going to be able to understand the problems and challenges and address them and solve them? Enhancing online presence to attract funding for women networks is also quite important because online platforms can prove quite instrumental in ensuring that women who do face mobility issues are somehow able to make use of existing resources online. Empowering women in trade through financial access, of course, is another very important point. Empowering women in trade through financial literacy. You see, financial access and financial literacy, I've mentioned them both separately because both are equally important and must be addressed separately. Of course, there's product and market diversification under trade agreements also that must be kept in mind. And there's some great examples of this, considering several free trade agreements between developed countries are ensuring that a gender lens is brought into their amendments, and it's something that South Asian region must adopt also. And lastly, of course, there's ensuring access to technology and improving digital literacy. We have excellent platforms like the Khatija program under the Pakistan Single Window, which I'm pretty sure Aftab Saab will be talking about in detail. But if the main consumer does not have that necessary digital literacy, these platforms will they'll go to waste and they'll not be made use of as they must be. With that, I'd like to conclude my presentation and say thank you. Along with me, of course, Dr. Waqar Ahmed was also an author in this report, and this report is present online, and I'd be very happy to receive any sort of feedback from all of you. So I'd encourage that please do visit the website and do view the report. Thank you. And Sadia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Manu, for this elaborated presentation and giving the ground for today's discussion. So now we will start the panel discussion following this presentation, and we will now, explore how women can benefit more from pre-existing trade agreements and identify the best case scenarios to follow in the South Asian region. And also we will examine how women-focused firms have integrated regionally and globally due to the market access arrangements on the ground, and the various gaps that exist across the different subsectors such as the agriculture, industry, or services, where women-focused firms have not achieved the anticipated gains. And we will also consider the role of the public and private sector in this context and seek the policy recommendation for public, private, and regulatory spaces to address these identified gaps. So now I will come to Ms. Nosheen Berkat. So your insights on these questions and also on the presentation.
First of all, thank you so much, SDPI and SNF for this invitation. Particularly when we talk about the presentation that was just done by Ms. Mahanur. So it was a very general and in a very specific way. So I would just continue with those things. If you talk about the existing things that women entrepreneurs specifically can be benefited from, first of all, we have the federation system, FPCCI, which really gives a platform for women entrepreneurs to showcase what they are doing, and also it also connects different businesses to trade across the borders, right, to different countries as well, on some subsidized rates when there is exhibition or any conferences or regarding their business growth. So that's a platform where women entrepreneurs can connect. Secondly, we have other systems. If we talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem which exists in Pakistan in the form of incubation centers, which are in different cities and major cities. Karachi, Islamabad, Gilgit-Baltistan, and Peshawar, Faisalabad as well. So they have a very vital role in connecting different entrepreneurs and different business ideas, and also grooming them and connecting them with the relevant investors and with the relevant sectors they are. So these are some of the, I guess, the places where women entrepreneurs especially can get connected to. And then when we talk about the financing system, because as we have already seen, the women in finance, if it's like access to finance as well as the literacy, so both we are lacking with, if we compare them to the other countries, so we are already lacking with them. So I guess the public private public partnerships, they play a vital role in bringing these women entrepreneurs to a platform where they can grow more, where the businesses can grow as well. And when we talk about the financing systems, the banks, the microfinance banking system, I guess they play a very vital role when giving the loans in the subsidized rates. So, but before that, when we talk about the rural area, the rural women, where we need to go, right, where we need them to understand the importance of the financial literacy, because only, I guess, 21% of the women, or sorry, less than 21% of the women have access to finances. So the role of the banks, state banks, even the microfinance bank, they have a very strong role, I guess. They have to take this initiative, and already there are so many initiatives running under the SMEDA, TTAP, which are already working in our ecosystem, in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So they need to go more into the rural areas to get that message delivered to the grassroots level, I guess, because when talk about the cities and the urban areas, women are somehow, they know about the financial literacy. They know how to get their businesses on board, to get businesses on, the greater level. But we have to go to the rural women in a specific way to bring them. So to bring them in a way to have that market access, to bring the businesses in a broader level, I guess. So that's from my side for now.
So thank you so much. Now I think women in trade are working. So because we have the women dominated panel here, and Ms. Aftab is waiting for so long to speak. So sir, now I come to you for address these questions and also your insight on the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sadia. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Aftab Haider. I'm the CEO of the Pakistan Single Window Company. Basically, we are a platform that's connecting government departments, including customs, banks, importers, exporters, on a digital platform to facilitate cross-border trade. But before I share my thoughts on it, I would like to really thank SDPI. SDPI has been a great partner for Single Window over the years. The topic of this session is also quite a lot of interest and relevance to us because of the work that Single Window has been doing in recent past and the success that we have had working with women entrepreneurs. But I'm absolutely thrilled to be surrounded by so many accomplished and intelligent women. When women are in leadership roles, there's a lot to learn. And so I've been taking notes, and I hope that other male participants in the session would also be taking a lot of notes because there are a lot of lessons and resilience and fighting against all odds and trying to do something that really counts. I think the presentation was excellent. What Manur has presented actually sums up everything that is not working for women generally, but for women in Pakistan specifically. I was looking at her recommendations. I was looking at the entire research that she's conducted, and the recommendations were the same that we came up with when we were designing the Khatija program. I will talk about that program a little bit later. But I think the problems are well documented. Women struggle in every field in the public sphere, but especially when it comes to business and trade. For some reason, business is always considered a male-dominated space, and for a woman to come up, run a business, and to think about cross-border trade is something that is very, very untraditional, I would say. So we've been engaging with a lot of women during our work with women entrepreneurs, and it's very interesting to see that a lot of these issues that have been highlighted, we think that these are issues that are faced by middle income class or women who are coming from disadvantaged regions or areas, but actually a lot of women who are in the business space for a lot of time also face the same problems. So for example, we found out that there are women who are creating great products, but they don't know how to connect with buyers abroad. And one persistent demand that has been coming to us is, connect us to the buyers. We have a great product, but we need to get access to the markets. Unfortunately, the existing trade agreements, they talk about gender empowerment. They talk about applying fair practices for creating those products, but I don't think they talk really about promoting women businesses or incentivizing women exporters to take advantage of those trade agreements. So this has been something that has very persistently come up. Manur shared a lot of numbers. I have a few numbers which are not very encouraging. 17% of our total entrepreneurial landscape, only 17% of them are women. So that's not an encouraging number. Only 43% of women have access to bank accounts. And this is actually an improvement, because the last time I checked these numbers in 2022, the number of banked female population was hardly between 17 to 20%. So I think that's an improvement, but still 43%. Half of the women don't have access to smartphones. Only 20% of the women actually have access to that. And why I bring up this issue of smartphones is because digitalization is something that we have not really thought about as an equalizer for trade. Technology has made a lot of advancement. It has, with astonishing speed, has started neutralizing the limitations that geography has imposed on us, that lack of market access has imposed on us, or that many women businesses face in accessing the shared pool of knowledge that is out there. Internet just helps us. Imagine a woman working in a small city. I come from Kohat, which is in the northwest, KP. So now it's possible for one of my nieces to create a dress, go online and sell it to somebody in the US market, just because internet is there. But the question is, does she have access to internet? That's the first question. And the number that Manu showed, that 76% of the women don't even know about internet, is really alarming. Second question is, if you have access to internet, do you really understand how to use social media to your advantage? A lot of women are very good at using social media platforms for entertainment. Not women, but a lot of men as well. I must correct myself. Yes, TikToks, Snapchats, Insta. I mean, I'm a fan too, but a lot of women especially don't know how to actually leverage these platforms to get more business, to access foreign buyers abroad. And that is something that is really important. So when we're talking about bridging the digital divide and improving digital literacy, it's also very important what kind of education we want to give to the women. So that's about, about the space that I'm working in. I think I'm not going to take a lot of time, because I think Manur presented a lot of great recommendations, but I would just like to plug in the Khatija program a little bit and tell you what we are doing. So as I mentioned, Pakistan Single Window is a state-owned enterprise. We are in the government sector, but we are working in a very corporate way. And we have a very, very active gender component. So we are the first public sector company in Pakistan, I don't know, maybe on the global level, to have conducted a gender audit of our systems and of the organization. And based on that gender audit, we came up with an action plan on how to improve gender representation within the company, especially at the senior level. We just don't want women to be fly on the wall, but they all should be in decision-making positions. And externally, we also came up with this Khatija program on how to encourage more women entrepreneurs to come and join international supply chain. So under the Khatija program, there are 3 pillars that we are working on. Access to information. So we provide information to traders and women businesses on how to navigate the bureaucratic maze, which unfortunately, with all respect to ex-bureaucrats like Madam and even myself, has been extremely, extremely difficult, a very complex regulatory environment. So we teach them how to navigate through that. We give them access to information on what kind of requirements and compliances are required. I was just talking to Nosheen before the session started and was asking if she exports honey. So if you want to export honey, there would be certain regulatory compliances other than customs, and we will let you know what those compliances are. We give access to finance. So basically everyone who's working whether it's Karan Das, whether it's SMETA, whether it's any non-governmental organization, whether it's Prime Minister's Youth Program, we invite them in our sessions to talk about their programs and let women know how they can access those financing schemes. And the third one is business-to-business connectivity. How to empower women to use digital tools to connect with buyers abroad and sell their products. So these are the three main pillars that we are working on. There are success stories emerging in a very small but significant way. One story that I would leave you with probably is of a woman trader who is in Quetta. And she came to our session, and during that session, she was given some exposure on how to use social media to better market her products. She used the learning from that session to actually start selling her products abroad. And there's a video that is on the PSW YouTube website, and you would actually appreciate how she speaks about how the earnings that he got from her exports helped her finance the treatment of her son in Karachi. So that was a very inspiring story for us. The success stories are powerful reminders of how, given the right opportunities, women can really, really contribute. So that's from my side. And I think, I'm going to leave you on this note, Sadia, that one of the very important things that we need to be doing is amplifying these success stories, talking more about these success stories. We don't talk about them enough. We talk about a lot of other stuff, but we really don't talk about how women are actually making a difference. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aftab Sab. So I think we have to, when I have talk about the challenges and opportunity, that mean we are, discussing the successful stories also. And one thing which I really liked about the Khadija program, that the gender audit, and I just wanted to add that we have also conducted the gender audit at STPI, so which I have led there. So, and of course, the digital literacy and financial literacy is very important if we are talking about the women in trade. So now I will come to Ms. Anjum, for these questions, and also your reflection on the presentation on the market.
Thank you very much for having me. And I regret having missed the opening remarks by the Bridget, and somehow at times I live in dreams, and I dreamt that the session will start at 3:30. So I made it 3:30, but I was already late by half an hour. Very well presented. I think it's a very comprehensive document, and almost all the aspects are covered in a very candid manner. But there's a touch of theory, and I'll add on some practical aspects and practical issues that we must look upon to be very realistic and on the ground realities that I would like to add on to the findings. My first question is Pakistan rural or urban? Pakistan is rural, 70%. How many are rural women of the total percentage? 62% of the total, 50% of the population, they are rural. So out of 240 million, if we make a little calculation, the rural women form 70 to 80 million in number. Let's intercept all the incentives, all the initiatives, and I would like to see with that lens how many of these 70 to 80 million rural women, how do they benefit? How are they encircled, enveloped for these incentives? I mean, just leave the mobile and everything. If all the incentives by the GSP, EBA, by FTAs, they don't trickle down to these women, and all the capacity building initiatives, all the loans, and even the rural incentives do not trickle down, and they don't benefit from these incentives. How can we reap and capitalize from these incentives? I'll just mention a few. For example, the literacy rate when we determine at the international level, at the national level, is not reflective of the majority of the women. And we should be able to reflect upon the literacy rate, the skill level, the number of mobiles by the rural women, who are in majority. Land ownership. Nausheen mentioned, I think, about the inheritance, or you mentioned about inheritance, or Manur mentioned about inheritance. How many of them are landowners? How many of them own a vehicle? Okay, leave the vehicle. No scooties, no cycle, not allowed. Mobile, they can have access, but we have to sensitize men on that. For inheritance, we have to sensitize men. For commute, we have to sensitize men. For skill development, NABTEC, TAPTA, everybody, they are in rural areas. How many TAPTA or NABTEC centers are in the rural areas? And how many rural girls are allowed to commute to the cities to develop the skills? None. And what about the wages? The women who are in the fields, who are plucking and cutting and helping in plowing and helping in whatever, what are their daily wages? How do they compare with the men? How do government incentives at provincial and national level reach these women? How many women own tractor? How many women got tractors in the tractor scheme? How many women applied to have tractor? Because the criteria was ownership of the land. You need to have 5 acres of land. So giving you example of Sargodha region, I checked with them how many women land owners are there, and they said, you are the only one. I was the only one. So out of 10,000 application, I was the one from one district. And I didn't make it because my land holding is higher than I didn't qualify because of the land holding. Yeah, and how many of them avail the loans? It's just the micro loan, informal, that they avail. Who avails the loan facility by the State Bank and by the Zarai Taraqqiyati Bank and all these big institutions? And these are realities. Okay, we want to avail instant benefits from GSP and we want to reap the foreign exchange earnings from the given GSP incentives, and only those who are into manufacturing and value addition and exports, they can avail these benefits on short-term basis. Have we thought about the long term? Have we tried to evolve and envelop these women? Have we tried to prepare them as the future beneficiaries of all these incentives? We haven't. We are missed out. We are missing out a big opportunity. We are missing out on 70 to 80 million humans who should benefit. No woman in rural areas is owner of solar scheme by the provincial government. They do not get laser level machines, which are subsidized. No subsidies reach out the women who are working in the village, who are employed in a way, but at very low wages, but they don't own any assets. They don't make sufficient earning. They lack the opportunities of even education and skill development. I'll just quote a little example like my colleague did of his own, in his own sphere of work. I'm a retired civil servant. As I retired as a chairperson, National Tariff Commission, and before that, I served as the District Secretary in Commerce and Finance and Economic Affairs Division and Prime Minister's Secretariat at NDMA and blah 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 blah. But I'm a landowner also. I own 12.5 acres of agricultural land, and after concluding my civil service responsibilities, it's a purchased land. I don't belong to that place. When I visited, I thought I need to do something for the girls. as of today, I've done 3 things, and that's at personal level. I have a foundation, ELY, Entrepreneurship, Learning, and Youth. Under this umbrella, I have trained over 450 girls in stitching, sewing, and tailoring, over 80 girls in beautician. The girls who have been trained in stitching, tailoring are self-employed. Those girls have worked for generation, and a generation has exported their embroidered stuff to UK. And somebody from UK took the pictures for display of the generation shirts, which were actually embroidered by the girls from Chak Chirasi SB, Lahore Road, Sargodha. Now, another designing line, Indifference from Lahore, they have reached out, and of course now the teachers are responsible, and the girls are made the teams, and they are utilizing this forum, and parcel and WhatsApp and mobile technology is being used. 8 to 10 beautician parlors have been opened by our students. It's a Kachi Basti, so we started education also. I was there, so I realized that pesticide and chemical fertilizer are harmful. So 2018 afterwards, no chemical fertilizer, no pesticide, only natural way of agriculture. And now recently I've started to produce vermicompost, which is the extreme super compost for the land. So these are the few things. And here I present myself as a female entrepreneur and an opportunity which I grasped, and the difference I have made. So the people I employ there, they have become now trainers of the other farmers, male landowners. They have become professors of agriculture and they teach them the natural agriculture practices. So that's how it is. And I think one of the big recommendations that is lacking in this report is focus on the rural women. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anjum. Now I will move for the next speaker, Ms. Najma Afzal. I forgot to mention his complete introduction. She's also the executive member of Faisalabad Women of Chambers. So ma'am, you also listen all the speakers. We have discussed the challenges and opportunities in the business and trade, and how you see like country like Pakistan where gender equality is at lowest. You can like how we can empower women in business and in trade sector.
Give a detailed discussion. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank STPI for inviting us on this great forum and give our views. Now, as a politician and a lawmaker and a proud Pakistani entrepreneur, I am acutely aware of the barriers women face in business, especially when entering the realm of trade. South Asia has reached a critical juncture where we must collectively work towards a more inclusive trade environment, one that we empower our women, fuels economic growth, and ensure the sustainable prosperity for future generations. South Asia, with nations like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, has tremendous potentials for export, growth, and economic development, especially through market access arrangements such as the Generalized Scheme or Preference Plus, GSP Plus, everything but EBA, yes, and various free trade agreements, FTAs. These arrangements provide critical pathways for our exports, while opening up specific opportunities for female entrepreneurs, especially those from small and medium enterprises, SMEs, to help them integrate into global market. However, despite an increase in exports driven by these trade arrangements, significant objectives remain unmet. In Pakistan, women make up about 20% of the workforce, but own just 1% of business, even as women contribute significantly in textile, in agriculture, in IT, handicraft, and the financial barriers remain prominent with half of the women entrepreneurs. Just now you discussed this, that they hardly get the facilities. And funding is a very primary obstacle. This, combined with legal and logistically challenges, restricts their ability to compete and grow. Additionally, the absence of financing options and inadequate financial literacy prevent many of them from tapping into high demand export markets. Platforms like Alibaba, Amazon, the EU's GSP, and offer significant growth opportunities, but these remain underutilized without adequate support and training. Regional and international trade opportunities for women. South Asia is blessed with diverse resources, from textiles and handicrafts to agribusiness and tech services. Yet women's share in trade and exports remain far below its potential. For instance, only 3% of the export firms in Pakistan are women-owned. Market access arrangements like GSP and EBA are not just frameworks for duty-free access. They are tools for empowering women by enhancing their business, visibility, and competitiveness in global markets. Programs like the World Bank's Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, WIFI, are stepping in to bridge these gaps. In partnership with local organizations, WIFI provides targeted support to improve women-led businesses, investment readiness, initiatives such as training of the trainers, empower entrepreneur support organizations, ESOs, to deliver intensive boot camps, preparing hundreds of women entrepreneurs for growth. Additionally, the WIFI advisory program on women business and the law has backed key legal reforms, equalizing business registration procedures to remove outdated requirements, such as including a father or a husband's name. Addressing the key questions on women's role in South Asian trade. How can women benefit more from the pre-existing trade agreements? Encouraging women-centric export industries. Sectors like textiles, handicrafts, and agro-processing, where women are often predominant, can thrive under these agreements. For instance, women-led textile businesses could leverage GSP plus concessions to export apparel to the EU with reduced or no tariffs. Training and capacity building. Government and private sector partnership can launch targeted capacity building programs to help women entrepreneurs navigate compliance and quality standards in export markets. Technical training in product quality, in packaging and branding is crucial to help women increase their foothold in foreign markets. Digital market access and e-commerce into trade frameworks will allow women to reach international customers directly, bypassing traditional barriers. Success stories I would like to discuss from Bangladesh. Women-run SMEs demonstrates the potential of platforms like Amazon and Alibaba for export growth, especially in fashion and handicrafts. India's SEWA, The Self-Employed Women Association, SEWA, supports women traders and artisans, helping them access national and international market. Pakistan's women entrepreneurs, with initiatives like the Pakistan Women Export Facilitation Centers, we have one in Faisalabad. More women are being trained to access international markets and meet export standards. Second question was, how have women-focused firms integrated regionally and globally through market access arrangements? Despite the limited resources, women-focused firms have achieved significant integration. Apparel and handcrafts, women and firms in apparel, especially in Bangladesh, have done trade agreements to expand internationally, benefiting from access to European markets. Cross-border collaborations, market access arrangements have spurred collaborations such as Pakistan textile partnerships with Sri Lanka. SAARC has also helped facilitate these cooperation environments, although further engagement could amplify outcomes. Aggregations and export consortia. In Sri Lanka, women's cooperative in spices and tea products aggregate to meet export demand. Capitalization on international pricing arrangements. This model is ripe for replication in other agriculture or small-scale manufacturing sectors across South Asia. Now the question is, where are the gaps in agriculture industries and services? Agriculture. Despite representing 60% of the agricultural workforce in Pakistan, only 2% of women own the land they work on, constraining their ability to scale and meet expert standards. Manufacturing. Women-led SMEs face significant financing challenges, limited access to new technology. In labor-intensive industries like garment manufacturing, women are confined to lower wage roles, limiting their capacity for strategic influence. Services. In IT and business, process outsources, women-focused firms struggle due to limited digital infrastructure and training, particularly in rural areas. So the government program targeting tech upskilling could help women tap into the growing global demand for outsourced services. Role of public and private sectors and policy recommendations. A multifaceted approach from public and private sectors backed by regulatory support is essential. Public sector, policy and infrastructure development are key. Governments should invest in resources supporting women's businesses, especially in rural areas, such as warehousing and digital access platforms. Low interest loans and trade-oriented courses at vocational institutes can increase the women's financial inclusion and trade readiness. Private sector corporations can help by integrating women-owned SMEs into their supply chains and supporting mentorship programs. Collaborating with fintechs to streamline payments and provide credit access, which can further empower women entrepreneurs. Regulatory space, simplified certification process, and stream facilitation, trade facilitation can enable easier market entry for women-led SMEs. Reducing the compliance cost and documentation requirements can make significant difference for smaller firms looking to expand globally. Pakistan steps to support female entrepreneurs in trade. In Pakistan, we can recognize that unlocking women's economic potential can transform the future of our country. Recent government initiatives reflect this commitment. The Kamyab Jawan program has extended over Pakistani rupees 40 billion in loans with specific targets for women entrepreneurs as well. The Women Entrepreneurships Development Program by the State Bank of Pakistan offers easy loans to the women. SMEDA, Small and Medium Enterprise Development Authority, provides business support service tailored specifically to female entrepreneurs. Digital Marketing Pakistan's training program targets women entrepreneurs, equipping them with e-commerce and digital skills access global market. Recommendations for greater inclusion: we should revive our policy reforms. We should enhance networks opportunities. We should invest in e-commerce infrastructure. And in South Asia, creating a more inclusive and balanced trade landscapes that will encourage the talents and ambitions of women across the region. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly believe that South Asia stands on the brink of a new era in trade, one where the voices and contributions of women will be integral to our growth story. Together, through focused policies, effective supportive systems, and initiatives that address our unique needs, we can ensure that the future of South Asia trade is inclusive, equitable, and representative of our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Najma. So before I request to chair to conclude the session, I would request three of you, if one key policy recommendation you can, share with us, or just we can conclude. Maybe one. Okay.
One recommendation, as if you just go look into the bigger picture, that we have big business companies that we have in our country. So they have some CSR projects in their companies, right? So I would recommend if they just collaborate with women-owned businesses. So they'll have amplified impact on our community as well, and those businesses who are working directly with the community. So this way, their businesses will grow as well, and with the help of their businesses, communities will grow with them. So I guess there's a responsibility on the bigger picture, bigger corporate sector. So collaborate with the women-owned led businesses who are working directly with the communities.
Yes, I would basically add to what Nosheen said. Basically, it's just not the corporate sector, in my view, it's also the public sector and the development sector that has to join hands together to create a more inclusive business environment. So whether there are partnerships to improve women's access to cross-border trade or even domestic trade, or there are better policies that have to be designed by keeping women in the center, or there are mentorship and network opportunities. I think all of them have to come together to really make a sustainable effort in this regard.
So
yeah, as I mentioned, the policies need to be more realistic, more inclusive, and more practical. Our policies lack this context of practical context and reality and the facts, who is benefiting from these schemes and incentives. So we should have revised policies and incentives.
So thank you so much. Now I'll come to the chair, Ms. Gulmina Bilal, for her concluding remarks.
Thank you so much, Sadia. मेरा ख्याल में ब्रिगेड को उर्दू समझ आती है और वो बोल भी सकती हैं, तो दिन के इस पहर अंग्रेजी जो है वो मेरे लिए बहुत मुश्किल हो। अच्छा, तो मैं कोशिश करूंगी कि उर्दू में भी, क्योंकि वैसे तो मैं प्रेफर करूंगी कि मैं पश्तो में अभी दिन के आखिर में आपसे गुफ्तगू करूं, लेकिन क्योंकि आप सबका लिहाज था तो उर्दू में कोशिश करते हैं। शाम गरीबा रही है जिसमें मसाइल की निशानदही हमारे सारे पैनलिस्ट ने, कुछ ने बहुत ही ब्रीफली किए, और हम मशकूर हैं डॉक्टर साहिबा की, डॉक्टर नजमा अफजल साहिबा कि जिन्होंने बड़ी ही तफसील से हमें मसाइल की निशानदही की। और ये सब टाइग होता है महानूर बीबी की काविश, जो कि पेरिग्नोमन फाउंडेशन ने गालिबन उसमें तामुल भी किया है, ताकि एक एम्पेरिकल डाटाबेस हो हमारे पास कि जिससे गुफ्तगू का आगाज किया जाए. बात हो रही है बड़े सगीर की, प्रेजेंटेशन हुआ भी बड़े सगीर के हवाले से हुई. And the elephant in South Asia, India, was not part of the study. है हम दुआगो हैं कि हम सब अपनी जिंदगियों में एक ऐसा दिन देखें, एक ऐसा वक्त देखें, खास तौर पे वो नौजवान जो इधर मौजूद हैं, कि जब हम बरसगीर के हवाले से गुफ्तगू करें और उसकी तहकीक के हवाले से बात करें तो हम हिंदुस्तान का भी जिक्र करें. और डॉक्टर साहिबा ने गालिबन हिंदुस्तान का जिक्र किया है और सेवा जो कि इंसिडेंटली फेडरिक नॉर्मन फाउंडेशन के रीजनल ऑफिस का एक पार्टनर भी रहा है. मुझे फेडरिक नॉर्मन फाउंडेशन के बारे में थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा इसलिए भी पता है क्योंकि एक ज़माने में जब मैं तालिब इल्म थी तो मैंने इनसे तरबियत हासिल की. मैडम ने बात की है ट्रेनिंग की, तरबियत की, स्किल की, तो हमने भी हम भी वहाँ मौजूद थे. तो इनसे हमने तरबियत भी हासिल की. साथ साथ कुछ सालों के लिए मैंने मुलाजमत भी की फेडरिक नॉर्मन फाउंडेशन में. तो ये जो हुजूर आपने जो गुफ्तगू की, आफ्ताब साहब ने पर्टिकुलरली जो पॉलिसी रिकमेंडेशन की कि आप डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर को, प्राइवेट सेक्टर को और पब्लिक सेक्टर को आप साथ लेकर चलें, तो मुझे मौका मिला इन तीनों सेक्टर्स में काम करने का. तो अब जब मैं नाफ्टैक के प्लेटफॉर्म से जब चीज़ों को देखती हूँ तो मुझे शक है, मुझे यकीन नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे शक है कि एक होलिस्टिक पिक्चर जो है वो इमर्ज होती है और जहाँ जहाँ वो तशनगी है कोशिश हम करते हैं कि उसको पुर किया जाए. मैं यहाँ पे फिगर्स तो कोट नहीं करूँगी क्योंकि मुझसे पहले जो ऑगस्ट पैनल है उसने कर लिए हैं. बरसगीर के हवाले से भी बहुत बात हो चुकी है, कोलैटरल्स के हवाले से बात हो चुकी है, वरासत के हवाले से बात हो चुकी है. लेकिन इस पूरे को दरिया को कूजे में बंद करते हुए मैं एक एनेक्डोटल एक किस्सा जो है वो मैं आपके साथ शेयर करूँ और मेरे ख्याल में ये निशानदही करेगा एक पॉइंट जो कि हम इन सब ने जिसकी तरफ इशारा किया और मैं एम्फसाइज करना चाह रही हूँ. बहुत साल पहले मुझे भेजा गया एज अ कंसल्टेंट कि आप इधर बात जेंडर ऑडिट्स की हुई कि जेंडर मेन स्ट्रीमिंग का एक प्रोजेक्ट था तो उसकी इवैल्यूएशन आप कीजिए. तो हम गए, कोहाट नहीं गए लेकिन उसके इर्द गिर्द किसी जिले में गए और लिस्ट पकड़ा दी गई कि भाई इन ये जो है वो हमारे मास्टर ट्रेनर्स हैं. हमारा बड़ा जार्गन होता है ना, मास्टर ट्रेनर्स, TOTs एंड ऑल दैट. सो हमें भेजा गया और उधर DC साहब थे और वो बहुत अच्छे जो है मतलब टॉप टू टॉप मास्टर ट्रेनर थे उस प्रोजेक्ट के. और मुझे जो रवायती जो सवालात थे वो हमने कर लिए. उसके बाद जब KII जो है की इन्फॉर्मेंट इंटरव्यू खत्म हुआ और चाय पेश की गई तो DC साहब ने हमसे पूछा कि अगर मैडम आप माइंड ना करें तो एक जाती सवाल पूछूं. So I thought this was the time when the honorable DC flirts with me. So I said जी जरूर, अब मरते क्या ना करते. मैंने कहा जी जी जरूर. उन्होंने कहा आपने ये घड़ी क्यों पहनी हुई? So now I was completely taken aback, and this was not a pickup line that I was used to, at least. So I got a little confused. So I said, जी अच्छा ये वो ज़माना था जब मोबाइल फोन्स नए नए आ रहे थे. मैंने कहा अच्छा जी वो हाँ अभी तो सबके पास फ़ोन है तो वैसे ज़रूरत तो नहीं है. अच्छा I was completely like my mouth was open and the words were coming out of my mouth without any coherence. So उन्होंने कहा आप औरत ज़ात हैं, आपका वक्त कितना कीमती है कि आपने घड़ी पहनी. The mindset issue. Your time is not so valuable that you need a watch to keep time. मैंने कहा सर वैसे वाकई आपने बजा फरमाया, मेरे मियाँ ने तोहफा दिया था इसलिए पहन ली थी. और which brings me to a second point and that is the mindset. हम ये क्यों कहते हैं कि खवातीन को सपोर्ट चाहिए? معاف کیجیے گا مجھے نہیں چاہیے. مجھے جو ریاست نے ہر پاکستانی شہری, پاکستان مرد, پاکستان عورت, پاکستانی ٹرانسجینڈر سے جو وعدہ کیا ہے, equality before the law, equal access to opportunities, مجھے وہ چاہیے. آپ مجھے سپورٹ نہ کیجیے. سپورٹ کے حوالے سے تو میرا اکثر میرے لنکڈ ان پروفائل پہ بھی ہے, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. So یہ جو انوویشن ہے اور یہ جو مائنڈ سیٹ ہے, یہ ٹارگیٹ ہم مردوں کو بٹھا کے 50-70 سال سے بٹھا کے ان کو سبق پڑھا چکے ہیں. ہم سے ہمارے بزرگوں نے بھی کیا ہے, ہماری آنے والی پود بھی کرے گا. نہیں کریں گے. پیٹریارکل مائنڈ سیٹ اس طرح نہیں بدلے گا. کون کہتا ہے کہ بڑے صغیر میں خواتین جو ہیں انہوں نے ٹریڈ نہیں کیا, انہوں نے کاروبار نہیں کیا؟ کون کہتا ہے کہ بڑے صغیر کی خواتین نے کراس بارڈر ٹریڈ نہیں کیا؟ میں اور ممالک کا ذکر ہی نہیں کروں گی. افغانستان جو کہ آفیشلی ابھی ساکھ کا بھی ممبر ہے, افغانستان میں ٹریڈیشنلی خواتین would decide the distribution of resources. The women would decide the amount which would be traded, the amount which would be sold, the amount of farm produce that would be kept. تو ہاں, مواقع کے ساتھ ساتھ سپورٹ سے زیادہ آپ یہ باور کروائیں کہ ہمارے راستے میں, چاہے میں کشمور کی بیٹی ہوں, چاہے میں دالبندین کی بیٹی ہوں, چاہے میں ڈی آئی خان کی بیٹی ہوں, چاہے میں چمن کی بیٹی ہوں, چاہے میں منڈی بہاؤدین کی بیٹی ہوں, چاہے میں بھکر کی بیٹی ہوں, آپ یہ باور کروائیں کہ آپ آبسٹیکلز جو ہیں, امپیڈمنٹس جو ہیں, وہ آپ نہیں کریں گے. اور یہاں پہ I think the public sector, private sector کی یہ ذمہ داری نہیں ہے, اس کی scope of work نہیں ہے, یہ public sector کی ذمہ داری ہے. بات ہو رہی تھی, اور میں اب تھوڑا سا کنکلوژن کے حوالے سے بات کرنا چاہوں گی کہ کتنے ٹیفٹرز ہیں. میڈم نے بالکل بجا فرمایا کہ ہم لوگ اسلام آباد کے ان ہالوں میں بیٹھ کے ہم غافل ہیں کہ کیا چیلنجز ہیں. اور میرے خیال میں مہنود نے جو ہے جو اسٹارٹلنگ فگرز, اینڈ آئی ول ری ایمفسائز اسٹارٹلنگ فگرز جو بتائے ہیں, ابھی جیسے انہوں نے کہا کہ غالباً پاکستان میں 12 I believe 12 was it 12 or 76? I've forgotten, Manood, if you're listening. 76. They don't have access. تو مجھے جو ہے مجھے ہنسی بھی آئی اور تھوڑا سا میں اپنے آپ ہی سے شرمندہ ہو گئی, کیونکہ ہم نافٹیک میں ہماری بڑی پریزنٹیشنیں ہیں کہ ڈیجیٹل آئی ٹی اسکلز کیسے دینے. تو بھائی جب آپ کے پاس انٹرنیٹ کی ہی سہولت نہیں ہے تو ڈیجیٹل آئی ٹی پہ آپ نے کیا کرنا. بٹ this is not to say that digital IT ہو گیا, تعلیم ہو گیا, ڈیبٹ کی تربیت ہو گئی, یہ سب ٹولز ہیں. مائنڈ سیٹ کا is the main goal. ٹیبٹس جو ہے وہ پاکستان کے, کیونکہ 18ویں ترمیم کے بعد صوبائی ٹیفٹرز بھی ہیں جو بہت بہتر کام کر رہے ہیں. کچھ صوبوں میں زیادہ اچھا کام کر رہے ہیں, کچھ صوبوں کے کچھ حصوں میں زیادہ اچھا کام کر رہے ہیں, کچھ میں نہیں کر رہے. میں یہ نہیں کہہ رہی کہ سب جو ہے وہ گولڈ سٹینڈرڈ ہے, چیلنجز ہیں. نافٹیک بھی کام کر رہا ہے, اور لیکن ہماری کوشش یہ ہے کہ ہم ریچ آؤٹ کریں. ہمارا چیلنج یہ ہے ڈیبٹ سیکٹر کا, اینڈ اس میں کوئی میں آئی ایم ناٹ شائی ان ایڈمٹنگ اٹ اوپنلی, کہ جو ہماری ٹارگٹ آڈینس ہے وہ ہم سے کمپلیٹلی بے خبر ہیں, اوبلیویس ہیں, اگنورنٹ ہیں. اور جو ہماری ٹارگٹ آڈینس نہیں ہے ان کو یہ بھی معلوم ہے کہ یہ سسٹم کو لوپ ہول کس طرح آپ نے استعمال کرنا ہے. سو اگین the ذمہ داری is on us, the onus is on us کہ ہم ایکٹیولی ریچ آؤٹ کریں. ہم نے ایک پروگرام پائلٹ کیا تھا مارچ 8 کو 2024 میں, جس کا نام تھا ٹھیک کر دوں گی. This was a promise and a threat. انگریزی میں اسے کہا گیا تھا she fixes. اور جب 8 مارچ کو as the first female chairperson of NAFTAC I launched this program, میرے اپنے ٹیم ممبرز نے کہا کہ میڈم اے دکان نہیں چل رہی, یہ آپ ہم نے پائلٹ 500 کے لیے ایلوکیشن کی تھی, my team members told me کہ لوگ ہی نہیں آئیں گے, کہاں سے آئیں گے, and the idea was کہ خواتین in conventional trades, electrician, plumbing, جو ہے carpentry, mobile repair, آپ یقین کریں کہ within 2 days of launching it on social media, ابھی ہم نے ایڈورٹائز نہیں کیا تھا, صرف سوشل میڈیا پہ جب ہم نے کیا تھا تو ہمارے پاس 2700 اپلیکیشنز آئے. وہ پروگرام ڈیلیڈ ہوا, اس کی NTS کی مینڈیٹری جو ہے وہ پھر ٹیسٹنگ ہوئی فار انٹیک, اور پھر ہم لوگوں نے یہ اگست میں اس کو سٹارٹ کیا, یہ نومبر میں ختم ہونے والا ہے. 760 خواتین بشمول کوئٹہ کے, بشمول خیبر پختونخوا کے, جو ہے بشمول سندھ کے, آف کورس پنجاب اینڈ ICT اس میں انرولڈ ہیں, جی بی سے انرولڈ ہیں جی. اور دا آئیڈیا از کہ اب ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ اس کی امپلائبلٹی کتنی ہے, اینڈ بیسڈ آن دا رسپانس اٹ از ناؤ پارٹ آف دا ریگولر پروگرام. بٹ کتنی ہی بدقسمتی ہے کہ 2024 میں بھی ہم یہ اس طرح کے پروگرامنگ کو مین اسٹریم نہیں بلکہ ایز پائلٹس میں آپ کے ساتھ شیئر کر رہی ہوں. سو دیر از اے لاٹ ٹو بی ڈن, اینڈ آئی تھنک اب جیسے سمیڈا کی اکثر پینلسٹ نے بات کی اور بالکل بجا بات کی, آئی تھنک سمیڈا کے جو انیشیٹیوز ہیں they to be lauded. I had a chance to take a look at their at the new Samida entrepreneur policy. اس میں ابھی بھی مائنڈ سے ابھی بھی کنفیوژن ہے between women owned businesses and entrepreneurship. So میرے خیال میں یہ بھی جو ہے یہ بھی, اور فریڈرک نارمن فاؤنڈیشن جیسے ادارے اور STPI جیسے اداروں کی بھی تھوڑی سی یہ ذمہ داری, یہ میں آفتاب صاحب کی بات کو آگے بڑھاؤں گی کہ آپ دونوں کی ذمہ داری ہے کہ آپ پبلک سیکٹر کو بھی سینسٹائز کیجئے کہ انٹرپرینورشپ, اکنامک انٹرپرینورشپ, سوشل انٹرپرینورشپ, ویمن اونڈ بزنسز, اس میں فرق کیا ہے, اس میں ہم تمیز تو کریں تاکہ پالیسی جو ہے وہ ریکوزٹ پالیسی پلاننگ ہو سکے. آخری بات, we need to be in sync with the realities. Madam, your point is very well taken. We need to be in sync with the realities, not just of the social demographic realities, but the market realities. Panel join کرنے سے پہلے میں نے آپ سب کو گوگل کیا, تو آپ کا پتہ لگا کہ آپ بی کیپنگ کرتی ہیں. میں نے اپنی ٹیم سے پوچھا, میں نے کہا مجھے بتائیے گا, میں آج 3 بجے دوپہر کو جانا ہے کہیں پہ, مجھے بتائیے گا کہ NAFTAC 223 ٹریڈس میں ٹریننگ دیتا ہے, 223 ٹریڈس. میں نے پوچھا بی کیپنگ کا ہمارے پاس ٹریڈ ہے؟ تو پتہ لگا 2021 میں ایرڈ ایگریکلچر یونیورسٹی راولپنڈی میں ہم نے 25 لوگوں کی ٹریننگ کروائی ہے ہنی بی فارم مینیجر کی. وہ 25 لوگ کہاں ہیں, کیا سیکھا, کیا پایا, there's absolutely no. So thank you to and this is my last point, thank you to STPI and thank you to the Frederick Norman Foundation for actually putting all of us here together. I think this was a well-developed program, well-developed panel, so that as chairperson I am also sensitized کہ یہ ہمارے 200 plus جو trades ہیں ان میں سے بہت سے trades ہیں جس کی market ہے, but at the same time we're not offering it. آپ سب کا جو دوپہر کا سفر ہے وہ اردو کا ہے یا انگریزی کا ہے یہ معلوم نہیں, but آپ سب کا سننے کا شکریہ, سارے پینلسٹ کا, and I'd like to ease the burden on Sadia. Like to thank all the panelists for their valuable inputs, and thank you again to STPI and the Norman Foundation.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to request all the panelists for the group photo. And after that, I will invite all of you to, visit our expo downstairs. There is happening like Sustainability Investment Expo.